Good evening, all. My name is Brian P. Easton, and I'm the author of a book series called Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter. And you have just stepped into the Werewolf Bar. So hello everyone, welcome back to Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter for your February edition of our 7th season here on YouTube. Glad you could stop by for a while tonight. We've got some interesting things to share with you. So sit back, pour yourself a glass of whatever it is you're going to have to drink while we start the show, as we usually do, with a toast with our creature of the night. To you. Now, it would be remiss of me on a werewolf show such as this not to acknowledge that today, February 15th, is when the ancient Roman festival of Lupercalia took place. Now, the name, of course, calls to mind wolves, but it was really a time of purification for the city and to promote health and fertility. In antiquity, it was believed that the name Lupercalia evinced a connection with the ancient Arcadian festival of Lycaea, or the Wolf Festival. I may have mentioned this before in other previous Februaries. I don't know. It's just an interesting tidbit for a month known for groundhogs, the Super Bowl, and candy hearts. So the first thing I wanted to tell you this evening is that our Legends of the Werewolf Hunter Book 2 anthology is slated to be narrated by Basil Sands in the next few weeks or so. Basil said he should have it wrapped up by the end of March, if not sooner. But as we've all learned by now, just because an author, or a narrator in this case, is finished with his part of the project doesn't mean that it's dressed and ready for dinner. In fact, there are any number of hoops that have to be jumped through before it's ready for download. But we'll keep you abreast of that, of course. And if you don't know, the Legends of the Werewolf Hunter books are anthology series based on the literary universe of my novels. Various authors of my acquaintance have been invited to contribute their talents to the creation of these anthologies, with every story sharing connective tissue with the world of Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter. Basil, who has narrated all of my books, also recorded the first installment of The Legends of the Werewolf Hunter, Book 1, and along with the audio of the 5 books in my series. You can find all that in the links in the description below. And just to give you the nickel tour for those who are maybe tuning in for the first time, this show revolves around those 5 books, as I mentioned before, that are part of the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series. The first book, Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter. The second is named Heart of Scars. The third is The Lineage. And that completes the trilogy for the character of Sylvester Logan James, the titular werewolf hunter. The fourth book in the series begins the prequel series that begins in the late 1800s and centers around Sylvester's mentor, the old Cheyenne warrior and medicine man, Michael Winterfox. The fifth book is a continuation of Michael's story and mostly concerns itself with his involvement in the First World War in Belgium and France as he pursues werewolves and other creatures in the backdrop of the Great War. There are books that are planned to continue the saga of Winterfox, as well as a fourth book that will complete the story of Sylvester. So that's the thumbnail sketch of the series, which focuses on the hunting of werewolves, both as an inherited tradition and a quest for vengeance in the case of Sylvester. Now, I've been fascinated with werewolves since I was still in grammar school. And as you might imagine, the Universal Monster films were some of my first inspirations, especially Lon Chaney Jr. As the Wolfman. When I was growing up, you had these late-night horror hosts wherever you were in the country, they probably had somebody like that. Well, where I grew up, we had a guy named Irv Copey who went to school with my grandfather. And he wasn't anything exciting or special. He didn't have a gimmick or anything. He was just an older gentleman who came out and introduced the films. And we look forward to seeing them, especially those which featured Lawrence Talbot, the Wolfman. So in 2010, when Universal remade the Wolfman, I was one of the first people in the seats. And I was pleasantly surprised with how much I liked it. So fast forward 15 years and we get another remake titled Wolfman, which I was naturally just as anxious to see. But because of the rather ham-fisted publicity surrounding this movie, I became increasingly pessimistic that it was going to be able to carry the tradition on. The 2025 Wolfman premiered last month, and as I told you, we would give you our thoughts on it this month. But before I get into that, Miles Booth and his son have a new YouTube channel where they review horror films from the perspectives of Generation X and Generation Z. So I'm going to let them do the heavy lifting for this part right now and let them share with you their thoughts in a review of the new Wolfman.
This is X and Z Horror Movie Reviews. I'm X with your Gen X perspective.
I'm Z with your Gen Z perspective.
And tonight we're reviewing Lee Winnell's Wolfman. A Wolfman movie in name only, Wino for short. The introduction of Were-COVID and also costumes that are from orcs from the Lord of the Rings. Welcome to X and Z. This is our review of Lee Winnell's Wolfman. We'll jump right into it. Director Lee Winnell is back from having done The Invisible Man. This time he's tackling the Wolfman. This is for the Universal Monsters lineup. And woo! We dropped the ball on this one a lot. All right. Our cast includes Christopher Abbott playing Blake, Julia Garner playing Charlotte, and Matilda Firth playing Ginger. A couple other people, no other standouts. We're just gonna start right away with Gen Z's take on this. You may want to sit down.
To kick it off, this movie has zero substance. I walked out of the theater, my brain felt fried. I had nowhere to put the movie in my head. There was nothing to it. The characters don't care about the movie. I don't care about the movie. The movie doesn't do anything itself, like the monster doesn't drag me. There's nothing that drags me into the world. Zero substance. The exposition in the movie, weak as all get out. It feels like a sad excuse to go to a random house in the forest. It's not really random so much. We'll get to that later, but it's a sad excuse to kick off the movie. Weak. The monster isn't a werewolf. It's an orc. It's literally from
the Wendigo zombie orc.
Right here. Truth. It's true. It doesn't meet any criteria to do with a werewolf. This is also another gripe I have. It paid nothing to the 2010 or 1941 Wolfman films. The whole idea that silver kills werewolf, it's the only element that can. Now, one bullet to the chest can kill a werewolf. Easy, just piece of cake. Easy. It makes no sense. A full moon? I didn't even know if we saw a full moon in this movie. Was there a full moon?
Like the ending where all the light comes through the trees, but it never showed the moon per se.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, it didn't pay attention to it. It wasn't a focal point of the film, I can tell you that. The movie is also extremely predictable. There were scenes I saw a scene 5 minutes later. I'm like, yeah, I totally saw that coming. I'm like, they're driving down the road, and I know the trailers showed them getting in a car crash and all, but even having like the lead up to them getting in a crash. I'm like, they're totally gonna get in a crash before it's so predictable. Not a great example, but you know what I mean. There's so many things in this movie. Evidently, being a werewolf and being infected with werewolfism is now a disease, like COVID, for example. Get your swabs, got a test. The symptoms may include cold sores, eating your own arm, and losing a couple of teeth, and, growing in huge malformed nails that, I don't know, it kind of looks like he was growing tentacles when he was transforming. That's another thing, too. The transformation is not very good. There's a lot of bone cracking. There's a lot of with the jaw. I'm like, are you a zombie? Like all things leading. A dentist, perfect. Perfection. He needs a dentist. He needs the best plan. If you're a dentist.
A number of professionals. Yeah.
So, that being said, the transformation too, in this movie, the director, he tried to make it, he tried to make the transformation instead of magical and it's happening in 30 seconds or 1 minute or 2 minutes where it's like big and it's scary. It happens over the course of 4, 6 hours, some odd hours. And while you can try and do something different for this movie, why? It takes too long. It takes away from the movie because all you want to see is the Wolfman, which we don't really get to see all too much of in this 2-hour-long movie. And even if we do, it's more man than wolf. It's a Bigfoot, kinda.
It's an orc.
It's an orc. That's true. Yep.
No,
orc.
It is
It's
a Urkai.
Yep. No, you're right. It's an orc.
Watch
It's
the
an
Lord
orc.
of the Rings, okay?
It's an orc.
Return of the King. It's Return of the Werewolf. Not Return of the King, the Two Towers.
The two what is Return of the
Saruman. The Fighting Urkai.
Oh. That being said, the transformation takes way too long. And by the time he is transformed, he's still kind of capable of just being normal. He chases his wife and daughter through the forest near the end of the movie, and it seems like he is chasing them, but it's almost like, it seems like he's hunting them, and they're scared of him, but by the end, he's like, yo, and he can't talk, but he's like, yo, shoot me so I can be dead and not be a werewolf and not hurt anybody. I'm like, you are not human anymore, bro. You are, or orc.
Maybe
not,
he is,
maybe
maybe he's not. It's difficult to say.
I'm gonna be honest, once the tentacles started growing out of his nails, I'm sorry, that's what they were. I'm watching them twist out. I'm like, that's not a nail, that's not a claw.
Some Lee press on action going on there. It was weird.
Like there was something going on. Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, just one thing to mention. The cliche of him, he gets stuck in a bear trap at one point in the movie, near the end. And instead of unclenching the bear trap from his foot, because, work and all, no, he chews off his own leg. I'm like, in the middle of the movie, Charlotte is going to jumpstart a very grimy truck. This is 30 years worth of grime in disgusting muck. Bad. Not something you wipe away. This is pressure washing. This is throwing the truck away and getting a new truck. Yeah. Bad.
Pressure washing.
So,
for sure.
So, she's going to jumpstart this thing with a battery, which doesn't even make any sense. But eventually, she gets it running, and the window wipers, the cleaners, she turns them on, and somehow, by some miracle, this grime that's on the windshield, I mean, it's opaque. It's not like a little.
You can see it in the trailer.
Like, it's absolutely horrid. I'm like, 30 years of grime, turns the window cleaners on. Oh, What? One swipe?
Yeah, those
It's
are
it's amazing.
The best windshield
Those-
wipers ever.
Oh,
we gotta
my
get the
gosh.
manufacturer's name because gotta get me some of those. Yeah, that
I was in
scene.
shock.
That scene killed me. I gotta jump in here for just a minute.
Okay.
First of all, she's gonna jumpstart the car battery in the truck with car battery that she finds inside, because you know how everyone has a spare battery laying around. And for whatever reason, she magically knows that the one in the house is good versus the one in the truck, which is bad. And when she picks it up, it weighs about as much as a Happy Meal, which if you've ever changed your own car battery, it doesn't. I'm going to kick it back to you.
Okay. So other than that, I'm convinced that the creators of the movie didn't watch the film after the editing process was over, because, oh my God, nobody would say, okay, we're good to go on the release. Wrong. This movie needed, honestly, it needed so much more to be done. And for me, for Gen Z, I'm gonna have to throw this movie, this Wolfman movie, in the wolf can.
I see what you did there.
It's bad. So, kicking it over to you.
Okay.
What do you
All
think
right.
about this werewolf orc movie?
Yeah. So I'd like to begin with huge werewolf movie fan. I love the 1941 original Wolfman. I loved the 2010 remake of the Wolfman. I like pretty much every werewolf movie that I've ever seen, pretty much. Okay? Wanted this to be good. Loved the idea of Lee Winnell putting his reinvention touch on it and doing something different, updating it, bringing werewolves into, 2025, new generation, let's go. I was psyched when I heard that they were remaking this. Having said that, and, it is never our intention to trash a movie, but we do have to tell the truth. Oh man, I mean, so many plot holes, so many missed opportunities, so much lazy writing, so much why did they even bother doing this? Okay, starting it off with a few lines of script about the mystical, magical Native American legend. That old chestnut.
A wolf face.
The wolf face, yeah. That magically is this disease that no one's ever documented before. Film opens, father and son, they're going to go hunting. They live out in the middle of the mountains. Okay? And it's fine. I guess hunting is good for, feeding the family and so forth. And unfortunately, if you're going to use hunting in your movie, please just hire somebody that knows anything at all about hunting. Yeah, okay? The hunting scene where the father is literally yelling at his son and then looks up and, oh, there's a deer. There's no wildlife within the quarter mile of anyone yelling in the forest. Okay? They know you're coming. Also, when they look up and the deer's there, it's a fawn. Nobody's hunting fawns. No one ever hunts fawns. That's why there's a hunting season. I'm not going to get into that, but my wildlife issues with this movie are many. I'd like to also point out that later in the movie, there's a scene with a spider. There are no tarantulas in Oregon.
And no Goliath bird eaters.
No Goliath bird eating
freezing
spiders.
Oregon.
Yeah, and just these little things just immediately pull me out of the movie. This says to me the director didn't care. He's like, get a big hairy spider in there. Make it scary. And even in the scene, they could have had a tiny spider. It would have been more effective, to be honest with you, for what they're trying to do with that. But there's just complete lack of attention to detail. I need to say this. Suspension of disbelief has to be earned. When you go into the movies, there has to be enough story enough visual material to draw you in so that you don't lose track. And every time a mistake is made, a careless error is made, it's over. You're like, you just like lost me there. We're supposed to be riveted, not just constantly picking things apart that are dumb. We're going to continue. So, it's a short opening with the father and son to establish we live out in the woods. And what we've established is the werewolf does come after them. They don't get eaten, but they know that it's there. The father tells the son, oh, it's a bear. Of course he does. The son knows that it's not. Of course he does. The son later finds the father in his whack job, like communication room with a skull flag and a paramilitary stuff everywhere. And, he's talking to another guy on a CB radio, like, we got to get this monster to protect our sons. And then, boop, it's over. So what we established is the son knows that there's a problem in the woods around the house. Fast forward 30-something years, now we're in San Francisco. And Christopher Abbott is an adult now, and he gets this notice that his father has passed away. Now he's got to go back home. Okay.
He's all cracked up about it too. He takes about 10 minutes to process
It's
that.
a really awkward and rushed scene. There's no real motivation here. There's no explanation here. His wife gets home. He's out of work. She's the only one working. She's still working. He's giving her grief over that. He's cutting up with the daughter. It's just kind of a lot of awkward family strife, and it's a good reason to go and spend the summer at the cabin. Julia Garner, who has a job, doesn't want to go to the cabin. Not real thrilled with that. And he tells her, oh no, it'll be good for our family, and you can work remotely. Which one might imagine involves the internet. Another big old plot hole disaster here.
Given that the house is powered with
Yeah,
a generator.
So next thing you know, they're in the truck. They're cruising through Oregon. Because of course they're going there. The Wolfman's not going to come to San Francisco. They get there. We see the shooting house that's in the beginning of the scenes. There's a guy in it. They're lost, of course, because he doesn't remember where he was going. And then the scene that we see in the trailer where blah, 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 Wolfman jumps in front of the car, and then the car, listen to me, the moving truck crashes. Okay, first of all, Jurassic Park called. They want their scene of the truck in the trees back. Also, his friend that was in the movie for 3.5 minutes falls out of the truck and dies. So that guy's gone, having served no purpose at all, really. Like, why even have him in the movie? Just have them driving, and the werewolf jumps out and they crash the truck. What's the point? Also, as I mentioned in the Invisible Man review, Lee Winnell hates car windows. Werewolf Man punches through the side window of the truck. He's going to punch through a windshield later. Like, dude needs therapy to get some aggression out. Okay? Anyhow, Werewolf manages to scratch the dad. Like, we don't have to bite people anymore to pass along the were-COVID. We can scratch people now, and they're gonna get the disease. Okay, they make it out of the truck. It's 1/4 mile or so to the house, 1/2 mile. It's a distance. They're running, they're in the woods, then they're in the field. They barely make it before the werewolf catches them because, everybody knows. Why didn't the werewolf just catch up to them sooner? I mean, really? What is that? The movie would have been over, blessedly, so much sooner. And it makes no sense. It's all done for tension, and boy, then we really get into it. So Winnell's concept here is not to have the immediate transformation. He wanted something that takes time. I do love that concept. I think it makes so much more sense. I thought this is going to be a really good chance to update the werewolf story. The way he does it is, instead of using magic where people just turn into werewolves out of nowhere, He likes to take, what did we say, like 4 hours. Let's
4
call
to
it
6 odd
4 to 6
hours.
hours. Something like that. It's all over one night. And he doesn't change so much as he rots. So when I said the Wendigo orc zombie creature, like this thing never looks like werewolf, ever. It's just watching this guy get grosser and grosser and grosser and fall apart. And Linnell even described Cronenberg's movie The Fly as a big influence here. But let's not forget, in that film, he had his fly chamber that he would go into, and that's what was making him change. And he changed over time, not all in one night. Nope. So without any help at all, except for the magical, mystical Native American legend, you know, you get a scratch and then you start rotting. But it gets bad because they make it back to the house. Just from the rotting point of view, some time passes. I'll get into that in a minute. And then at some point, this guy just starts leaking blood all over the table. And his wife is like, oh, honey, like things don't look like they're going so good. They take the bandage off that she puts on. His entire arm is rotted away. Like, it's not even like he couldn't be alive. Like, seriously, like bones and flesh zombie, like not a minor wound, not the scratch that he had first got. And so naturally they're like, okay, Dad's going to be okay. You know, what?
Yeah, we got to get him to a hospital. That's what they
Okay.
say, like,
Yeah, we need a
I'm
hospital.
like,
So
the arm is gone.
yeah, no, it's seriously gone. And so naturally he starts to eat his own arm. What are we doing here, people? What are we doing here? You could eat your own arm for no particular reason. You needed a snack. I don't even know what to do with this movie. It gets just stupid. Naturally, all of this is taking place over a few hours, in which the werewolf that's outside doesn't want to come in. But then he gets tired of waiting. He jumps on the roof and breaks in the upstairs window.
Which leads to a bar fight with werewolves.
So let's go back to when they first make it into the house after being chased across the field, and the father, Blake, is gonna put a big hutch in front of the door. He starts nailing boards down and everything, only to remember, oh, the back door totally unguarded with an open dog door. And my point with all of this is Leigh Whannell is just jumping from scene to scene to try to capture a visual look. And there's a term called an auteur, and it's a filmmaker that has such a distinct style. You can watch a movie and you're like, oh, you know, Tim Burton made that, or Quentin Tarantino made that. These guys have their styles. They're very distinct. And I feel like the new generation of horror movie directors are desperately trying to find their way into this category. They're failing badly in a lot of cases. Our next review will be for a movie that's great.
It's
just
actually well done.
And we're not going to name it because it's coming up, but it is good. Okay, very good. That's coming after this review, so stay tuned for that. There's no communications. She's got to dig out the CB radio after she was going to spend the summer working remotely. Yeah, I mean, what was she going to do? Mail letters to the office? Hey, there's just nothing works. It kept pulling me out of the film, and that's my point. Okay, let's talk about the Universal Monster Universe and how Universal just keeps failing, just missing the mark, and I don't know why. I can tell you that this movie had a $25 million budget. I can tell you that Robert Eggers' Nosferatu had a $50 million budget. It shows. Like, what are you doing? $25 million. Why? Why not make a good movie instead? You know, this thing's just going to get trashed. A lot of people are disappointed in it. It's not going to do well. And it had a perfect opportunity. There was a lot of excitement for it. I was excited. I know a lot of people were excited. Missed opportunity. some of the scenes, some of the special effects, as you had pointed out, the werewolf vision.
Oh my God.
It's a rip-off of a video game called Dead by Daylight. It's just like not
The Halloween event.
not good. The volume, that's what I'm trying to like pronounce here. You know, when you're watching TV and all of a sudden the volume just goes up and you didn't change it. That happens in the movie. It gets distracting. It's a little weird and not great. Just not really what we're looking for. You know, it's a miss. And the only other thing I'm going to say is I don't know how in the world this guy's making a movie and he didn't just get the inspiration of Ruth Langmore versus werewolves. Everyone would have loved that. Nope, not gonna do it. You know, we get Julia Garner completely wasted in this role. Does nothing, says nothing, has no good lines. Nobody does. It's just not good. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Cannot recommend this film. Sorry, but it's true. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
That's it.
Okay.
All right.
We're done.
We're gonna conclude that for you and ourselves, because holy. So,
All right. I'm X.
I'm Z.
We thank you for watching as always, and we look forward to bringing you a very positive and good review coming in the next few days. Thanks for watching.
I mean, seriously, you got to think about this. You know, if you're gonna eat your own arm or leg, I mean, you need some seasoning.
Like,
Seriously.
You know. Then it gets stupid, yeah.
Oh.
So we're out in the middle of the country where the paramilitary nut used to like have his man cave set up, which apparently had no guns at all. Okay? And so now we're going to have a werewolf fight. Old wolf, new wolf. That's going to go boop. Like, really? Did you get concerned? All right, we're not going to beat a dead wolf.
Or a dead orc.
Dead orc.
One of the two.
No, dude, it's straight up a ripoff of Lord of the Rings. Like, I couldn't place it at first. And I was like, what is that? Oh my gosh, it really is the Yurk High character. Like, when he pulls his jaw out, he was like, this is like, is he a snake man? I don't know what's happening here.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
So,
okay.
All right.
We're done.
So when I saw it, I went into the theater ready to hate it and already composing insults in my head to level against Universal and Blumhouse. I left the theater with a dominant thought in my mind, which was that if this movie had been an indie film named, I don't know, Night of the Werewolf, Return of the Werewolf, anything like that, and if I hadn't heard or seen any kind of publicity about it, I would have considered it to be on par with the likes of The Cursed back in 2021 or The Beast Within last year. An interesting experiment, perhaps, in werewolfery to add a new wrinkle or two. But since this was decidedly not an indie flick, it was done by Universal and christened Wolfman. I absolutely condemn it. And the short-sightedness of whoever okayed the way the werewolf was presented and how it looked. This was a Wolfman film, without full moons, without silver bullets, gypsies, Lawrence Talbot, or pentagrams. It's like if Fright Night, which wasn't a bad film, but it's like if Fright Night had been named Dracula. And that's what you were going to see. And to me, that's just unforgivable in and of itself from a studio who damn well should know better by now, right? But even without getting into the film's other flaws, which X and Z pointed out, I don't think the movie cut out the supernatural since they kind of predicate the whole shooting match on some ubiquitous Native American curse. Now, there is a piece or two of the film that I liked. The concept of the slow, gradual transformation from man to beast was a bit of a departure for the werewolf film, for one. But the end result of that transformation? Do you realize that in 2010, on the remake, Universal spent $225 million adjusted for 2025 inflation? Compare that to 2025's a measly $25 million was spent on this. It's a slap in the face to fans of the Universal Monsters, and it's an offense to the ghost of Lon Chaney Jr. and the memory of Lawrence Talbot. Not only was I not impressed by this movie, I was insulted by it. So moving on. I want to respond to a message that I received a few months ago, right after Halloween actually. The sender voiced her concerns that my show was promoting witchcraft and the supernatural. And though she didn't call it by name, I know she was referring largely to our segment Doc Talk Shop with Dr. T. Broussard, because it reflects the occult content of my novels. To which, let me say that I'm not here to promote anything but my book series. Okay? I'm not here to promote whiskey. I'm not here to promote weapons, in the case of Tools of the Trade, or the occult with Dr. T. These segments are meant to express and explain different elements of the autobiography of a werewolf hunter series. Still, I can understand, especially in this day and age, how my intentions might be misconstrued. So with that in mind, I've asked Doc to present us with a brief talk on the dangers of the occult. And I'll ask Tex to do the same kind of thing for weapons when Tools of the Trade returns down the road. But right now, here's Dr. T. Broussard of Baton Rouge and Doc Talk Shop.
Hello and welcome to Doc Talk Shop as part of Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. Tonight, I will be going over what to me is a very important topic. And although I hope I'll be able to do it with a certain amount of fun, it is in fact a very serious topic. And the topic of tonight is the actual dangers of the occult. I do not mean reading about the occult or watching movies about the occult or anything like that. What I'm referring to are the actual dangers of dealing with occultists, attempting to learn the occult, attempting to practice the occult, and things like that. One of the primary dangers is, in fact, dealing with people who may not know as much as they claim they know, or as much as they think they know. There are people who read one book on magic, one book on witchcraft, or one book on spiritual warfare, and they think they know everything. Or worse, they look things up on the internet, which is a literal babel of confusion as to every possible topic. Besides those types of dangers, we also have the very real risk of someone looking into the occult and an actual cult deciding that they're a threat and harming them or involving them in some criminal action many groups use the patina of the occult or religion to mask criminal activity. Many drug cartels in different parts of the world have done this. Governments like that in Haiti at one point used voodoo to control the population, or rather the fear of voodoo. No, in the case of Papa Doc and his family, it's debatable whether or not there was genuine belief on their part, but the people certainly believed. Another danger is the self-taught occultists who cobble together what they learn from movies and TV and things like that. I'm sorry, that kind of information, is meant for entertainment, not education. Even shows that hire technical advisors, and there have been a few. Those things are meant for entertainment. So, sorry to inform people, there is no Rule 3 or any of the stuff that you see in a show like Charmed or Buffy or movies like Craft. These things may touch on real themes or even use real objects, but the things that happen in those media manifestations, rituals and so forth, except in the rare cases, are not real. Now, another real, very mundane risk is the would-be seeker of the occult being ripped off, because there are people who will play at being occultists of various kinds, witches and so on, in order to get money, in order to make you dependent on them and get you into their cult. And you'd be surprised how many intelligent people give away their money, they give away their autonomy, their freedom, and people have died going to would-be shamans and going through would-be initiations and things. It's a very horrible situation. In a similar vein, there is the well-intentioned mystic or prayer warrior who believes in God and they've been called by God to fight evil, so they might read a book or two, they might look some things up, but if they're gonna put everything through the lens of their religion, and they're gonna miss several points. And so, for example, in the film version of The Exorcist, the Catholics go up against Pazuzu. Well, sorry to tell you, but historically speaking, Pazuzu would not give the Catholic Church the time of day. Pazuzu is a Sumerian wind demon brought forth long before the church was even an idea. So, that's not an accurate portrayal. Now, an exorcist could, in that circumstance, call upon their paradigm, their power, their patron, to bring forth the necessary power that would have authority over Pazuzu and thus cast out Pazuzu or whoever is pretending to be Pazuzu in the case of the film, and deal with it that way. And that brings up another point. A very difficult part of learning the occult is that when you're dealing with an entity many entities will claim to be other deities or entities. That's why when you watch deliverance examples, different pastors will cast out Lucifer multiple times. Now, leaving aside the fact that Lucifer could not possess someone because of certain spiritual laws of Christianity and where Lucifer's bound at the moment. By the way, his real name is Hillel, not Lucifer. Lucifer is a title that belongs to many entities, which could explain why there are multiple manifestations. But so again, you have to sort out who's who and what's what. Now, I'm not saying you have to learn every paradigm and every hierarchy and every system. The real secret, and this is some inside stuff, so gather close to your TV sets, kids. You have to learn a system and work through that system and interpret your phenomena through the system that you've learned. And then once you've begun to get a feel for things, you have to then learn other systems just and see how they interact with yours without abandoning your own. For example, a Catholic exorcist remains a Catholic, but it would behoove that Catholic to learn the hierarchies of demons, to learn the basics of different types of ritual so that he can then use his own ritual to counteract that. You need to know what you're dealing with before you have a way of dealing with it. You have to know it before you can deal with it. You have to define it. So, for example, if you are dealing with someone who's cursed, you want to find physical evidence of the curse and use that evidence to figure out who did the curse, what they used, how they did what, and that will point you to what would be the corresponding power in your paradigm so that you can counteract the curse. There is no one-size-fits-all process in any of this. That's why you can't just learn one book. You can't even just learn one system, because if you only know your own system and you don't have experience with others, you'll never learn how to counteract them. A very important risk that many occultists never take into account until it's too late is obsession. In that respect, the practice of the occult can be almost like a drug addiction. It can take away your focus. It can absorb your life. You don't eat. You don't sleep. All that kind of stuff. So you have to be able to counteract that balance. You have to counteract that practice, not by abandoning it per se, but by grounding yourself. That's why, as important as my occult work is, I balance it out with martial arts. I have things outside of that realm that I do that keeps me grounded in the real world. And so those are what I would call important but basic dangers. Now, beyond the basic dangers, you also have things like faux initiations. There are websites you can go to right now that will initiate you into this and initiate you into that. And they're money grabbing schemes. In fact, Anton LaVey openly admitted that his Church of Satan was a money grabbing scheme. It was about social rebellion and all that, but it was really about getting him wealthy, and it did for a while. It was never as successful as the propaganda made out to be, and that, in my opinion, is a good thing. When you are dealing with learning about this stuff, there is a need to take it seriously, but not to be so serious about it that you are fearful of it. You have to respect it. It's like in martial arts. If you don't respect your opponent enough to see them as a threat, you will lose, even if they're not as good as you, because you don't respect them. You don't treat them appropriately. Same is true of the occult. So you shouldn't be fearful, but nor should you be farcical or disrespectful. It's a balance, like with much. So, one of the most important things a real occultist, a sound occultist will do is when they come across something they don't know, they'll tell you, I don't know, or I've never heard of that, or I have to look that up. If any occultists tell you to, they know everything, they have all the information, they are Doctor Strange, they are the reincarnation of Aleister Crowley. When you that kind of nonsense, they're full of shit, and they need to be treated as such, and possibly reported to the police, depending on what's involved. Another major risk or problem with studying this stuff is a lot of the modern published books on the occult are regurgitations of stories and things that are just sort of compendiums of information. They don't really give you real instructions. And when you do come across a modern edition of a grimoire or something that should have real information, the publisher or the editor or what have you, the translator, has corrected things from the original manuscript. They filled in gaps. What they don't realize is that many of the imperfections in the old manuscripts were in fact codes, and you had to be able to fill in the gaps appropriately yourself as part of being able to decode the book in order to use it. Decoding and reassembling the book was an intelligence test. That's why they add some books out there like the Key of Solomon and so forth. But witch hunters and the like would always look for handwritten books because the real grimoire that you work with, your own personal book of spells, if you will, was always your own. And it was never exactly like the published works, because to use the published works, you had to find the key, take the book apart, reassemble it, and that was your book. Coupled with your own notes, your own observations, and so on. Most modern systems of magic are not ancient, whatever. They are maybe 100 years old, 200 years old at most. They're based on older things, in some cases very old, but they are reconstructions, they are modern. A good example of this is the Book of Solomon's Magic by Paul Runyon. His stuff is very good. He admits it's a reconstruction. he gives his process, he gives his reasons for why he does certain things. I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, but for what he does is very good. A good example of the dangers of the occult, in fact, comes from the recent remake of Nosferatu, or rather, I should say, a reimagining of Nosferatu. In that film, the young woman Helen throws herself open spiritually to anyone and anything that would fill a void in her life. And she has the misfortune of having great spiritual potential. So Warlock picks up on this, he seizes on it, he forms a connection with her, and inadvertently, she ends up making a pact with Warlock, and frankly, brings about the devastation that occurs throughout the film. She invited Warlock, and at a certain point in the film, she reaffirmed her invitation, and ultimately affirmed it thrice, the third time to get Warlock in a vulnerable position. Now, as horrible as the events were, in that film, Warlock was defeated, and the powers of good, overcame. But look at the cost. In real life, magic is never simple. Everything has a cost. The smallest thing has a cost. If you take the time to learn the basics of a practice, and you live, and I mean that because it is that dangerous, you could rightfully call yourself a magician or something to that effect. I mean, as much as I know after well over 30 years, there's still lots I don't know. In my work, I have dealt with many entities and many problems brought about by people playing with Ouija boards or people mixing symbols together in a room, or people putting real occult symbols on their skin as tattoo art. Not really believing in the occult themselves, but they thought it would look cool, and then they had problems in their life, and ultimately the problems were traced back to a tattoo. I have dealt with false ministers who, in attempting to deliver people, have ended up making people vulnerable to actual demonic attack, and I've had to clean up their mess. So, these are some of the dangers of the occult. When we think about the occult and entertainment and things like that, one of the few problems that can come from that is obsession, like I mentioned earlier with practice. That can make you vulnerable to attack because you're opening yourself up to a fictional world, and just like with Nosferatu, an entity out there will take advantage of the invitation. So there's another definite risk for you. Now, at the risk of making people mad at me, I'll tell you quite frankly, I don't believe in having occult souvenirs or toys. I don't believe in owning Ouija boards or things like that, unless you actually know how to work with them safely. Problem with a thing like a Ouija board is, again, you're opening up an invitation to whatever wants to come. That's never a good idea. So, all that being said, I'll say goodnight.
Thank you, Doc. These are things not to be trifled with, like firearms or anything else that has the potential to cause you or others harm. Let me tell you a quick story that's kind of tangentially related to this. Years ago, somebody told me, a man who's has no reason to lie and is one of those guys, you know, that you probably know somebody like him, who if they tell you something, you believe it. It's just that kind of a person. But the story that he relayed to me was that a certain seminary in the United States, sometime in the 1970s, a certain seminarian who was so devout and so on fire for the Lord that he felt the need to challenge the devil to a one-on-one. So he went into the basement of a building there on campus, alone in the middle of the night, when the place was completely deserted, armed with only a Bible. Then he proceeded to call out Satan, step outside, kind of a thing. He began to defiantly insult him and to challenge him to a battle in that darkened cellar. Only the man, and ostensibly the devil, know what happened next, but he would never talk about it. All the man who told me the story knew was that this seminarian in question fled the building as fast as he could. You know, even Saint Michael, when contending with Satan over the body of Moses, which is in the Bible, only says to him, "The Lord rebuke you," which tells you that even for the mightiest of archangels, the power to confront and rebuke the powers of darkness comes only from God alone. In other words, don't go picking fights or making deals with the devil. And that kind of ties in with what we were talking about, what Doc was saying about dabbling and getting involved with powers you really have no comprehension of. Remember, what I write is fiction. It's horror, but it's make-believe. But I do try to suspend that make-believe. I suspend the disbelief. I make use of real things because it's that kind of a book series. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please post your thoughts in the comments down below. I always do my best to reply to them. Well, one more for the road, figuratively speaking, lest I be accused of advocating drinking and driving. And I'm going to wrap things up for tonight with that. Remember to like and subscribe as you leave the Werewolf Bar. And be sure to check out our links in the description below, where you'll find our book series and everything else related to the hunting of werewolves. Enjoy the rest of your evening as I leave you with a stinger right after I wish you happy hunting and mind the moon.
In the wilds of the Rockies, where the Great Peace River flows, a hermit's rustic cabin still stands as long ago. He's the last of his order, a shaman Rador's men, who recalls the mighty buffalo and clothes made from deer skin. His name all but forgotten, save for a precious few, and his deeds are legendary. His life steeped in the feud, in the denigration of his people. He was his culture's final chance. The burden of his nation weighed heavy on his back, but he fought through bloody trenches and the Kaiser's bloody hunt, and he made war on the lineage, for he was his father's son. He bore his line's tradition to make war upon the beast, and took woven scalps from Western Front to the Middle East. Listen to my counsel, son, hear the voice of the past. Do just what I say, boy, to get ready for the blast. Feel the earth beneath you, let my halo be your guide. In the heart of the mountains, where the spirits still abide. I'll teach you how to hunt, how to fight and to kill, how to learn your proper senses, bending body to your will. I'll show you your blood brothers, the rattlesnake and owl. But most of all, Sylvester, I'll prepare you for the how. As the full moon in the heavens cast its shadow long and wide, I would tell you of my life, boy, if it weren't for my pride. I have become an old man, you see, bony, gray, and creased, used up by all the years and the predations of the beast. Listen to my counsel, son, hear the voice of the past. Do just what I say, boy, to get ready for the blast. Feel the earth beneath you, let my halo be your guide. In the heart of these mountains, where the spirits still abide. Now I send you on your journey, into battles you must face, with your guardians beside you, to help you keep your place. And in the twilight of the ages, when your story finds its end, remember this old man gave you all he had to spare. Listen to my counsel, son, to die before you cast. Do just as I taught you, boy, and make those lessons last. Feel the night around you, let my halo be a guide. Listen to your spirits, all the stars come woven tight.